This video series was put together in 2020 during the global lockdown due to the Covid-19 pandemic. Interviewees were asked what they expected the impact of the Covid-19 restrictions and the shift to online learning to have on the reward and recognition of teaching at universities in the future. A range of different views were expressed. One theme that came up repeatedly was the extent to which the Covid-19 restrictions had emphasised and highlighted the importance of students and teaching and learning to the function of a university.
What COVID-19 the message it's brought home is that without students we don't actually have a university. So I do think that it's about the teaching and learning that is the centrepiece of the university.
When speaking about the impact of the Covid-19 restrictions on the reward and recognition of teaching at universities, some interviewees were relatively pessimistic. They saw universities as very much troubleshooting, dealing with the here and now, designing and developing a remote education, and other questions such as the reward and recognition were very much being pushed further down the line. For other interviewees, they saw the Covid-19 restrictions as potentially having a quite positive impact on improving the reward and recognition of teaching, as academics were stepping up, particularly in educational leadership roles, to design and develop new educational approaches. There would be an increased pressure to reward and recognise that kind of contribution in the next promotion round. A number of interviewees also spoke about the Covid-19 restrictions as an opportunity to rethink universities and their function and their reward systems.
I think the fact that we've been thrown into such a moment of change, such a set of challenges that we've all had to face together to implement really significant changes to the way that we work in universities, the groups of people that are now having to collaborate and work together on things that didn't used to have to do those things, the way in which we've changed our approach to teaching and assessment radically, lots more online activity, of course, but all underneath all of that, a lot of discussions about the principles of what are we trying to achieve, what does good look like, what does inclusive look like, what can we do if we are creative and imaginative. And I think given the moment, I think it's always a good thing not to waste the opportunity that's embedded within a crisis if one can possibly do that. And I think there's a huge opportunity, there really is, for just rethinking what a university is, the normal ways in which we make decisions, who is involved, who sits at the table, and what indeed we are actually looking for. What does good look like? Now that we've seen that good can look like so many different things and can be quite different from the way we traditionally imagined a university operating, I think that's a great catalyst for institutions to, again, look at themselves, to look at other institutions and to say, actually, we could be doing some of these things differently. We should be thinking about roles and responsibilities and criteria for promotion in new, fresh ways. And now we have an opportunity to think again.
Some interviewees also expressed concern that the Covid-19 restrictions would exacerbate existing inequalities, both in teaching and learning and in the reward and recognition systems.
I think the question about COVID, it could, to my mind, it could go either way. I think it's not clear to me whether it will benefit the people who are excellent teachers or whether they will find themselves just under increasing pressure. I think we have quite a lot of evidence that in general COVID-19 is exacerbating existing structural disadvantages. So even at research-intensive universities like UCL, teaching is likely to be recognised and rewarded more because people are having to teach more. And we do have evidence that staff are prioritising teaching and they're prioritising pastoral care for students over research much more than they have in the past. However, for some staff, this probably means that they are limiting their careers in terms of the research routes, and we know that from the research we've been doing at UCL, we know that many of the staff that are taking on that kind of emotional labour of supporting students in their learning at this time are women, and so a lot of this is falling disproportionately to the same staff who might have been historically disadvantaged anyway. So I think it's a really interesting conundrum for me that whilst people are putting more effort into their teaching and universities are recognising that this is a time when it's more important than it's ever been, so there's the potential for greater reward, we also know that at the end of the day there's a chance that all of the disadvantages that existed already may be widened by the end of this. Having said that, we had a workshop a couple of weeks ago that was chaired by Anthony Smith, the Vice Provost for Education and Student Affairs, really looking at the disadvantage for women who are taking on more of this emotional labour, and discussing how our reward and recognition does need to be changing even more rapidly in response to it. But I think it's quite a complex question, it's quite nuanced, and there are a whole range of structural inequalities across different groups that were known before the pandemic that are probably just going to be highlighted and exacerbated.